As far back as I can remember, the mega carriers have had recruitment problems. And they'd come up with all sorts of schemes and techniques and ideas to try to attract new drivers. Some of the strategies they used were a little bit misleading, to the point where some of them were just downright dishonest and verging on criminal, in my opinion. This video is sponsored by GP Transco. The earliest strategy that I can remember them employing was they would advertise a false mileage rate. So say if everybody that year on average was making 25 cents a mile, they would advertise that they were hiring for 40 cents a mile to attract drivers in. So when the drivers would get in there, they'd find out that, well, really it was only 40 cents a mile after the first 3,500 miles that week. Or in truth, the 40 cents a mile was a team rate and the drivers would be splitting that. So they'd get the new drivers in there who wouldn't really understand what running team meant. Back then, most of their equipment was spring ride, it was short wheelbase stuff, and it would just beat the living hell out of the drivers that were trying to sleep. They'd have to strap themselves into the beds, and they still wouldn't get any rest. It was just impossible. But it was just something that the mega carriers would do to attract new drivers in, and forget that to mention that part to them. Another favorite trick that the mega carriers like to use is they would advertise a sign-on bonus. But a sign-on bonus is supposed to pay when you sign on. Well, that was never really the case. They'd get a new driver in there and then they'd explain, well, really, the sign-on bonus will pay out in increments of months or sometimes years, or sometimes they wouldn't even get these sign-on bonuses at all. They'd bring new drivers in and then judge their performance and then say, well, you really didn't make the grade for this sign-on bonus because you didn't get good enough fuel mileage or you wanted too many weekends off. They'd find some trick. But a sign-on bonus means you get the money when you sign on. But they would never do that. A trick I saw one of the mega carriers use was advertise a free Harley Davidson for the driver that had the best performance record at the end of the year. So all these guys would run their hearts out, try their hardest to get good fuel mileage, and then at the end of that year, the Harley Davidson was won by the son of a management top official. And it was just a scam. Nobody that really ever deserved the Harley got a free one. It was always some relative of the boss. Back not that long ago, US Express came up with a bright idea to start a whole new division to attract new drivers, and they called that division Variant. And the attraction was that the drivers could pick their own loads. And the commercial they had to attract guys for this division called Variant was hilarious. I laughed right out loud when I saw it because the guy that was doing the advertising for them, the actor involved, had a Variant tattoo right on the back of his neck, and he'd strode down the sidewalk to impounding music, and it was just all glorious. Variant lasted about a year before they closed that division, and US Express ended up selling after that to Swift Knight. And I still wonder to this day if that driver from Variant has that tattoo on the back of his neck or if he had it removed. The most damaging tool that the mega carriers ever came up with was this leasing program for trucks. They would take a new driver fresh out of driving school, convince him to lease a truck and tell him he was going to be an owner-operator, he was going to be an independent. And this guy would fall for it, this new driver would fall for it, and he would work for that carrier sometimes for years, making truck payments, paying for all the fuel, paying for all the maintenance, starving because there was nothing else left, and he would go for a few years, and then the mega carrier would find some excuse, any excuse, to repossess the truck from him before he actually managed to pay it outright. He would never own the truck. I had one friend that fell into this lease operator program, and they ended up firing him because they claimed he hadn't reported a speeding ticket that he'd gotten in Idaho. My friend had never been in Idaho. Didn't matter. The truth didn't matter. They managed to repossess the truck and it broke that guy. GP Transco is a good, honest carrier that pays their drivers very well. First-year drivers at GP Transco can earn between $80,000 and $95,000 a year. They've got a 401k with a match, full benefits, they're W-2 workers, they drive top-notch equipment. Check them out at gptransco.com. One of the more recent tricks that the mega carriers came up with was through their lobbying arm of the government, the ATA. They had the ATA lobby the government so ATA carriers could hire underage drivers between the ages of 18 and 20 years old to run interstate. Previously, that had been illegal, but the ATA convinced the government to allow the mega carriers to do that, to boost the ranks of the drivers at the mega carriers. Happily, that whole plan failed and fell on its face anyway. Not enough young drivers were interested in working for the mega carriers. And now, for the second time in recent memory, the ATA has decided they're going to use the trick of attracting more women to the trucking industry. They've tried this once before and advertised for women drivers to try to boost their ranks, and it didn't really go all that well. But they're going to give it another kick at the cat because they're kind of running out of tricks to employ new drivers to attract new hires. So they're going to appeal to women. The sad part is that the industry really hasn't improved since the last time they tried this. In fact, it's gotten worse. It's still a 70-hour work week. It's still no overtime pay. It's still running in crappy areas, running crappy hours. Not much has changed. Unsafe parking is all that seems to be available anymore. Safe parking is at a rarity. It's hard to attract women, or anybody for that matter, into a job that is less and less appealing every year. The truth of the matter is, trucking has always been a dangerous job. It's always ranked in the top 10 most dangerous jobs in the USA. To add insult to injury, the ATA insists on having all these new monitoring systems in trucks, like the ELDs and the automatic braking, that type of thing, driver-facing dash cams, and that takes away the big appeal of running a truck because there's no independence when you're being micromanaged from the dispatch office. The truth is, these tricks and schemes that the mega carriers and the ATA come up with never really work because they don't last very long and they don't concentrate on retaining those drivers. They hire them and the drivers leave right away. The good carriers out there already know the formula to keeping the good drivers. It's not a secret and they're doing it every day, all day long. The mega carriers could take a lesson from watching the good carriers. Stay safe, keep the rubber side down. If you're a new driver looking at a driving career, research these companies before you hire on. And if I were you, I'd avoid the mega carriers. I'll see you on the backhaul.